So welcome back to the Good Leader Podcast with my co-host Dave Miller. I'm your host John Martinez, and we're going to be building up on what we talked about last week was the new year, and our topic today is going to be why motivation is bullshit. And Miguel, let's go right there with the intro. Basically, kind of to keep building off what we've been talking about for the New Year stuff is how motivation is bullshit. It's more on discipline is kind of the key factor, I guess, in maintaining a good lifestyle. What do you think about that, Dave? Like, what's your opinion on it? Because I know you said you have a better like kind of insight into what you thought about it.
So, I mean, there's a few different angles. I don't think that a lot of people actually, really focus on. I think motivation does actually depend on a lot more external factors than, say, discipline does. But then there's matters of physiology that people actually don't really consider. I mean, like somebody, they goes out and they watch like a Tony Robbins video, to get motivated. It's like they tell you, if you visualize your goal powerfully, you'll start, aligning with that goal and all that.
Burn the ships.
But there's some various things that actually assumes. I mean, it assumes that one, you're working with solid motivation, that doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. You're always a rational decision maker. You're working with a cooperative nervous system functioning on full capability neurotransmitters that have no deficiencies. And these are all kind of underlying things that nobody considers. I mean, you do actually have to have like a lot of things in balance before motivation can even take hold.
Yes. No, I agree. I think that's why one of the points I wrote was like kind of doing the boring shit. It's kind of the key to doing it, like getting enough sleep, eating right, working out, having like a regular routine. I think a lot of people, even for myself, when I notice when people talk to me about even today, like I talked to two different people about it, and they're like, "Oh, how often do you go to the gym?" I'm like, usually every day. Like if I have to miss, will I not do it? And to some people, that's like monotonous or that's boring or it's not exciting. But to me, it's like, well, what are you doing?
Right.
Like what is it? What makes it so hard for you to do? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle because they just see it as not exciting. When part of it, it's like, I guess it's what's your point of view of excitement, and also to me, what's the long term benefits of it? Like to me, I personally see working out as not like a chore to me. So I think that's why I enjoy it. I don't know if you're probably the same way where working out is like so ingrained in your lifestyle that it doesn't feel like damn, I got to work out today. You know what I mean? It's more of like something you look forward to.
There are those times when it's like, you get up in the morning and it's like, you may have that part of your brain that's trying to talk you out of it,
yeah.
But if you can get past that, I mean, it really is a foundational sort of thing to everything else you do.
Yeah.
And when you actually start missing that piece, a lot of other things start falling apart.
And that's I think that's the key to it. I think the same way to me working out is like, if I get enough sleep, go work out, we're doing the podcast. I think we talked about this last week. Like we're doing these like productive things. So when you don't do them, you feel weird. It feels weird not to do something. And I think that's where the difference between how we're thinking and when we're talking about discipline compared to motivation, because we do them out of obligation because we said we're going to do them. We also do them because we know that there's benefit to doing them. And I think it's because we want to do them. And I think that makes a big difference in kind of how you approach situations. So I think a lot of people that are lacking the motivation are saying motivation as the word is because they're just waiting for them to feel like doing it. I feel like doing it. And it's like, you're never going to feel like doing it. Just do it. Just do that shit. Like that's, there's
how you feel about it really shouldn't matter.
Yeah. It's not,
It's just one of those things that that you have to do in order to remain, balanced in your life or be able to actually, make your day complete.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like you said, it's like feeling how you feel about it is almost irrelevant because if you did everything based off feeling, I think one is you see on the extreme end. It's not for us to go off of the topic, but if you look at the people when it comes to like the people that are so extreme, I mean, you can turn on the news and see it, but people that are so extreme about how they feel that they can't even act rationally, you know what I mean? So then, then it's a kind of like where people that don't have any, that are just all logic, and it's kind of somewhere in the middle. I think you have to kind of find that good place in the middle where, hey, this makes sense of what I'm doing. I may not always feel like doing it, but when I'm done doing it, I feel better about how it makes me feel. It also helps me be more productive in my life.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it actually ends up becoming part of your internal story.
Yeah.
You know, and a fact of it is that when you have a good habit like that, you know, whether you want to or not, you know, and you continue, you keep pushing, keep driving, it's easier to maintain that good habit than it is to say start a new one, you know. So it's like it becomes more of a fight to drop it, you know, than it is, you know, to try to, you know, just change it up.
Yeah, I think we're it's ingrained with us where it's almost the opposite. For us to go into not doing something is feels like the equivalent to some people trying to go to the gym. Like where it hurts us not to, like, oh, if I don't go to the gym, it feels weird.
It does.
Yeah, where some people it's like it feels weird for them to go to the gym, but so that I kind of get that.
You're out of sync of your normal routine.
Yeah. What is one thing that you learned the hard way about discipline and routine? Do you remember like a point where you just from then on, moving forward, you just became like more disciplined? Was it anything, or you just always kind of had that? You were always just kind of raised that way.
So, I mean, when it comes to the working out, I mean, it's started out with my dad when I was young. You know, the military dad. I mean, we were just like, as far as I can remember back, man, it was like, you know, calisthenics every morning. You know, making your bed Marine Corps tight. All the, you know, all these things. You know, that were just, you know, how you start your day, you know, and they needed to be maintained, whether you liked it or not. This is like actually ends up being how you're presented to the world. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that always ended up being like a foundation for me. And it, no matter what kind of hard knocks I've ever faced, having that underneath me has always ended up carrying me.
Yeah, it makes it, because it kind of goes back to, I think, the foundation of maybe where when something's bad is happening to you, you kind of know, okay, like, let me focus, do the small things, and small things lead to better outcomes. I saw something about a study where they were saying, like, parents are not influential in their kids' life as much as outside influences are. And I think that's true to when maybe kids get older, because I've seen that when kids, you know, I think we've all been, when we're in like junior high school, we think our friends are the most important thing and high school is important. And then we realize as adults that none of that shit is important. But I think what your parents teach you in that foundation is kind of what you end up leaning on in hard times. You kind of start referencing it back. So I think you start going back to like, dang, okay, this is why my parents said, you know, study in school, you know, work hard, you know, like, you know, kind of, you realize like those are you end up leaning back on that foundation, like, but until you know that, you're kind of just you're kind of building your house, and sometimes you got to like knock it down because it's not working the way that you want it to.
And when you get that kind of start, I mean, it's always the case where it's like you don't necessarily understand the long-term effect.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know where this is going. And so as you start looking at it, it's like, God, I hate this. But then also you get that kind of fixed in your head. So I hate doing this, but I got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it just makes it hard to change at that point. You know, and you end up sticking with it. And then you start seeing how these things apply in your life. And then you can look back and it's like, man, I'm so lucky that I didn't have like a parent that just like throw like a device at me to just shut me up.
Yeah, go out there and cry in the corner with your iPad.
Yeah, you know. Whereas like, you know, with some parents, you know, say like my dad or whatever, you know, man, if you're misbehaving or what, it's like, hey, go grab those, you know, those paint cans and like hold them, you know, shoulder height for 5 minutes, or, you know, go move that pile of rocks over there and then move it back, you know, dig a ditch, fill it in, dig it, you know, another one. It's like, all right, I guess I'll do my push-ups.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
No, and I think that too. From my mom, I always learned she was very driven and kind of like had to keep a tight schedule because she had like had me and my brothers and sisters and was going to school and all that stuff. And my dad was the hard work aspect. So as I grew older, I learned that from them. And then for my kids, I think I always try to be where it's like, okay, take their qualities, add in some of what I think could add to it. You know what I mean? Then you hope that your kids pick up those habits of things like that. But yeah, you can definitely tell when there's, I think that's what I see. I was listening to something right before I came in where this guy said, I need more men. I don't need bigger boys type of thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we're kind of struggling is like, yeah, it's like if you don't get taught that stuff by people around you, or even go seeking it, because they're going to have people that are going to be like, well, no one taught me that, no one was around me. But that's the reason for me, like I went to the military because I knew that I could only learn so much from my mom and was learning so much from my dad. And I kind of had to venture off on my own. And then you meet other like mentors or people that are older than you that you learn from, but you have to kind of go seeking that knowledge, on a vision quest. I don't know if anyone remembers that movie, but yeah, you have to go on a fucking vision quest. And a lot of people don't do that. They stay in the same circle of friends that are telling them, don't do shit. They're mad at their surroundings. They're blaming their mom because they can't get a girlfriend, and all these things are factoring in. It's like, but it all ends up coming back to them. Like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing to make things better for yourself?
Yeah. Are you staying in a position where you're comfortable, or are you actually, taking a risk to move ahead?
Yeah. Hold on, let me see this. Why did it lock me out?
You'll hear that kind of same story a lot of times. It's like people's, the 5 people you hang out with the most is who you are.
Oh yeah,
and then you really have to take a look at who you're hanging out with. Are these people like they're actually going somewhere, or they're the ones that just kind of that you're just hanging around with because it's comfortable.
Well, that's what I have right here. It says it says that if you look at the current culture, we have people that are protesting, people screaming, and people that just yell shit at random strangers. And it's kind of like, but nothing really gets done. It kind of comes back to the point of where it's like, it's one of the things I tell people, whether you agree or disagree with things how the way they are, what are you doing proactively to change them? So it's like, if you don't like, say, the immigration laws or whatever the way they're being are, what are you doing to help change them? Are you doing anything? You don't like that you're, out of shape or don't have a girlfriend? Are you actively trying to be healthy? Are you putting yourself out there to meet people? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? But a lot of it is, it's like they don't want to take the responsibility or the accountability. And then it all comes back to then the discipline part of it, of them doing these things day in and day out. And that's when they'll get a good result or they'll get a better result than what they're not doing right now.
Well, again, that does come back to kind of your own inner narrative. Yeah. I mean, if you've conditioned yourself to a mindset of like, I start out things well, but then everything falls off. Yeah. I fail at this. I don't do good at this. There's always such and such in my way. That becomes an actual narrative in your brain that your nervous system will actually fight to protect.
Yeah.
Because from a physiology standpoint, your brain will sacrifice success for predictability. Because success could be all wrapped in all the unknown, man. You're venturing into places that you've never stepped into before. But if you've got that inner story that you're stuck with and you keep telling yourself, your system is going to fight to protect that because it's comfortable.
It's kind of like you're scared to lose and you're scared to win type
Absolutely.
Of. And that's why, this weekend when I talked with the guy, Steve Morris, and he kind of talked about his story, he did kind of, he mentioned that a lot of times. Basically, when he was not doing good, it was kind of a result of his things that happened to him in his past, and then when he was doing good, he felt like he didn't deserve to do good. So then, it's kind of, you're kind of creating that same narrative, and it wasn't until he kind of started having to deal with those issues that caused all of those feelings for him to kind of actually start making headway and kind of, I guess, I won't say confronting it. I don't know how he would word it, but that's what it seems to be the key to doing it. And I think me and you were talking right before this, or I saw the same video today with Marissa Tate, or I don't know if I'm saying it right, but she was from the UFC, and she talks about that. Basically, when she was losing, she didn't feel good, and she thought by winning she would feel better, and she didn't, and that led to her ultimately kind of wanting to like thoughts of harming herself and things like that, until she kind of had to step away and kind of like take care of what she needed to do to feel better. And so that kind of just started making me think about that, like, dang, it's really attached to what's the source of the problem, and these are all just the symptoms of it. So sometimes that makes me feel like the discipline part of it is the discipline part of it. Is it a symptom of it, or is it like almost like an antibiotic for what the issue is, right? Like, say you have an issue, and if you start changing your habits, does that help you start changing what's going on with you? You know what I mean? It's not going to just like I guess any medicine, right, would heal you right away. But if you do it enough, hopefully it starts changing, like you said, rewiring the way that you're thinking.
Yeah.
That's it. When you were saying that, it just made me think about that. And that.
I mean, there's a lot of mental roadblocks
Yeah.
that people can set up for themselves. And again, it comes down to a comfort level. So I mean, if it's one thing that you do learn just from the basics of working out,
Yeah.
physical activity, is that you learn to embrace the uncomfortable for the benefit that you're going to get tomorrow.
Yeah.
It becomes a habit, especially when you do notice gains, you do notice progress and all that sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, moving forward isn't comfortable.
Yeah.
It's not going to be nice and, and easy going, laid back, and stuff's just going to land in my lap. I actually have to work at it. I have to put my head into it. I have to put my body into it. I have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think it definitely is kind of like you're creating your own way, which is always going to be harder. It's funny, when I was younger, I used to think about that when we used to do navigation, like land navigation. And during the day, you can kind of sometimes skirt along roads, or you can go off of like, we used to call it like terrain association type of things, and find your way. But at night, you're really shooting an azimuth out. You're walking in the dark, and you have to do certain things like go to the left of the tree, go to the right of the tree, whatever, which way to kind of maintain your course. And sometimes I think that's kind of how life is, in the sense, right, in that kind of way where it's like you're kind of walking in the dark, you're shooting an azimuth to get to where you're going, but doesn't mean you're going to always get there on a direct path. And sometimes you would be off, and the more you kind of like if you started veering too much to the left, where you're trying to hit, you may be 500 feet away from it. Where if you kind of kept staying the course, you may not be right on target, but you're closer. And I think that's kind of what discipline does for you. It doesn't make everything perfect, but it drives you towards your goal rather than away from it. Where everyone knows the things, it's always the common things that people seem to struggle with. It's like alcohol, like eating bad, not getting enough sleep, being around, like you said, people that aren't really pushing you to do the right thing. Because I know me and you are the kind of the same way. I don't think any of us are hanging around guys that are just like not doing shit. You know what I mean? I can't name any friend that I have it just at home not doing anything. Everyone's either working, has a family, trying to run a business, doing things like that. So I think that keeps us all kind of, I don't want to say it's not pressure. It's more like it keeps you like not even motivated would be the word. It's kind of like, okay, I want to hang around like high performers. Yeah. So it makes you kind of like, okay, we're all performing, then we all interact. And especially for guys, I think it's different than, because I think girls are a little bit more, I want to say, open about pushing each other. Like, oh, even for the wrong thing.
Right.
But I think with guys, it's always like you want to be around guys that are doing that, because then you're kind of pushing each other in that way of like, oh yeah, that's cool. He's doing good. I want to do good. I want to do this. It makes you more feel like, yeah, let's do this shit together kind of thing.
Yeah. You find the people that say have the things that you want, or are in the places that you want to be, and the thing is you follow those people, as an example, and try to learn from them. I mean. You got to be constantly trying to pick up the things that you don't know, man. If you want to keep moving into tomorrow, at a different level than where you are now.
Yeah, kind of being like humble enough to kind of like be open to seeing what they're doing, and like, oh, I like that they're doing this. I like that they're doing that. Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, even with the gym thing, like when I first came over here to this area, and I was like, oh, there's no gyms like that. So it was funny when you guys opened it up, and I think you talked about, I don't know if it was Steve or someone else who had been in different areas and said, why don't we have a gym like that? And then that was a kind of I guess, the birth of the idea of like, because you go to different places and you're not like instead of being like envious or jealous, you're like, man, that's cool. Why don't
Yeah.
we, have a way to kind of bring that to where we're at
Yeah.
and then put our own spin on it, and that's basically how everything kind of takes form.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's always cool.
Yeah, you adopt things from the places that are outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah, you're looking
know?
at different places.
Absolutely.
How often do you think bad habits come from unresolved issues?
That's a good question, and I think it could be close to about 100% of the time. But I mean, the bad habits usually arise from just not wanting to deal with the issues.
Yeah, more of avoidance, you think?
More or less. I mean, people will use it as like, kind of an escape. It's like, well, I gotta get away from reality.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna open this bottle, and then, next thing you know, reality's staring in the face the next morning just with a hangover.
Yeah.
It's just like you haven't really changed the situation, man. But you got an endorphin high for a little bit,
Yeah.
So you got a buzz and you were cool for a few minutes, but now you've just compounded things because you got a headache.
Yeah. I think that's too with the kind of with maybe the culture today where it's more geared towards not really, it's like not really doing things on yourself, like kind of living vicariously through other people. You know what I mean? Like, all they're doing it, so I'll watch their streams of them doing it. And it's like you're streaming and watching people go to the gym, like take your own ass to the gym,
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and that kind of goes back to, I think, my whole sports thing. Me and that guy Steve kind of went into this whole thing about sports, about I have nothing against sports, but I do have something against guys that are more into watching other guys playing sports than it is actually being physically fit enough to do a sport. Like, it's this thing with me where I'm just like, why are you training for him more than you cheer for yourself? It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're not even pursuing anything.
Yeah.
You're living vicariously.
He scored a
through somebody else.
touchdown. I scored a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. We win.
We won.
You weren't even on the field, jackass. Yeah.
That's kind of where I.
Right. Talking about like the team as if they're on it.
Yeah. We get mad. Oh, what? I want to watch sports. Some of the things I think people consider boring is like the same wake up time, same workout time, same meals, same bedtime, and same weekly kind of rhythm. But then those are the things that kind of they limit the chaos in your life. You know what I mean? They kind of help with that discipline because now you're used to doing things in a set structure. And then I also think that when things do change, you're not totally deviating from your plans, period. But a lot of people, I think that seems a lot of people that I meet that struggle with the gym, Lucy, their life is kind of, they like to have this more fly by the seat of their pants type of life. You know what I mean? I don't want to go do this today, so I won't do it. But then the way I kind of explain it with people is like a day can turn into a week, and a week turns into a month, and a month turns into years, or a year of you kind of doing these things and never building up these good habits. So now you're just so far off of the course that it's just like now you're back at square one.
I think that's one of the fundamental natures of discipline itself is that it actually has to be structured. I mean, you can't really approach something as a practice as if it's like a shotgun blast.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to do it here and there. But, this time, you know what? We'll reschedule it tomorrow. For a different time. No, it's got to be consistent.
Yeah.
There has to be a consistency, to keep you accountable.
Yeah. No, I think that works. And I think it creates, like you said, that pattern of behavior, which changes the difference to your pattern of thinking, and which ultimately leads to you getting things done, or at least getting farther ahead. And I think that's where people that are listening to us are it comes up about how they feel about things. Like, is what you're doing right now getting you the results you want? And if it isn't, then why are you doing it? Why not try to do something else?
The definition of a saying.
Yeah.
You're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like, and I'm not saying that like I have all the answers or Dave has all the answers, because we don't. We can't make, like, our lives are not perfect, and your life is not going to be perfect. But I think what it is what I notice is losing these habits. Whenever something doesn't go my way, I can tend to build off them and get back on track, because already I'm used to okay, this didn't go my way. Okay, well, I still got to do this, this, and this. And Lucy leads me back to going to where I'm going, and kind of, because it's that discipline, it overrides everything. Okay, I'm a little bit away from the road. I got to get back to it. How do I get back to it?
It's that consistent win
Yeah.
that you can get each time, And that's kind of the way I feel about working out. I mean, it's actually a win in the day.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, I've moved this amount of weight in X amount of time, you know, really, you know, got my win going for like however long, you know, it's an accomplishment. You know, you've done something that's actually productive. I mean, you lift a weight, you're going to be stronger tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, you've accomplished something. And if you can fall back on something that can be maintained consistently that way, then yeah, you do have a basis for building everything else.
Well, I talked about this class I went to was a crisis intervention training class, and the guy, he was a psychiatrist, and so he had told us about how he became a power lifter because he learned that the act of trying to make yourself stronger, like working out, then you feel stronger. You know what I mean? You're lifting weights. You're like, I'm getting stronger. Your mind tells you you're getting stronger, so you feel stronger when you approach issues in life. So it doesn't change what you're facing. It just changes your approach to it and how you feel about it. You're like, oh, this sucks, but I could do it. I could deal with it, kind of thing. And I think that's where Ed wrote down some of the talking points about it was, you know, instead of saying like, I'm trying to work out, I'm someone who trains. Like, how do you talk to yourself? You know what I mean? Kind of flipping your identity to someone who your identity, your behavior follows your identity, and your behavior follow your identity. Basically, you kind of start becoming that person rather than like just be saying, oh, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that.
Your internal narrative.
Yeah.
It's you know, the quality of your language determines the quality of your thoughts, you know, and then your actions follow that.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you like use words like, you know, I'm trying,
Yeah.
you know, I'm really trying, man. You're leaving yourself a way out.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, you know, it's like I'm working out. I'm going to the gym at X time. You know, I'm doing this routine today. I'm doing this routine tomorrow. You know, it's the whole Yoda thing. You know, there is no try. You know, so do or do not.
What does Bruce Lee say? Or is it Bruce Lee? Or maybe somewhere I just read, it says like, is it the man who knows 1,000 punches or the one man who throws one punch 1,000 times? Like, and that's kind of what it might come to. Like, you don't need to try. And I do think people overcomplicate getting their life back on track for like because they start trying to do too many things at once. Like, oh, I'm gonna work out. Oh, I'm gonna do Pilates. Oh, I'm gonna do this. And you may have to do something like that to maybe figure out what you like. But once you like something, just stick with it for a while. Almost like plant your feet in the ground and say, hey, no, I'm gonna try this for 6 months. And then if I don't like it after 6 months, but don't try to do 5 different things at one time. I'm gonna go hiking today, and then I'm gonna go to the gym this day, and this. Then you get overwhelmed, and pretty soon, you know, you just fall off because I think it starts feeling like too much instead of little steps. I thought I saw something that said even going to the gym, where if you don't do weights, like you should at least come to the gym, walk for 15-20 minutes, go home, do that like a couple times a week till you get used to going to the gym. Then say, okay, I'm gonna start doing weights, and you slowly start incorporating it into like your habits, and then that becomes like your win. Because you're like coming, okay, I made it to the gym, I walked, that was my goal, I did it, boom, and the next week you just start adding on to it. So I think that's kind of a cool concept too. That's like not baby stepping in, but you're kind of, at least you're meeting your obligation.
No, it's keeping it simple.
Yeah.
You know, you're not, you know, taking on too much.
Yeah.
You know, especially if it's coming down to a time where, you know, some things are falling apart to where you have to rebuild. I mean, it could be easier to do so if you strip away all the complicated, back to something simple that you can maintain consistently. Then you can add something else. You know, once you've gotten that, you know, that point where you are on a roll with something, then you can add something else. Then you can add the next thing. Then you can add the next thing.
Because I think a mistake I see with people when they're especially trying to get on the physical fitness track is, and you probably see this more than I do, when people start off working out again and they start just going like, balls to the wall crazy. Like they come in and they're, you know, they want to do handstands and they're throwing on, you know, 8 plates. They can't even lift, and you're doing all and you're like, what are you doing? And you're probably going to injure yourself within the first week of training.
And they do.
Yeah, and they do. And I've seen that before where guys are just like, they're just overdoing it. And I'm like, I've never seen you at the gym before.
Yeah.
You look like you haven't been to the gym in a while. You're just going absolutely nuts on the stuff, and then you don't see them anymore, and you're kind of like, well, you probably came in to hurt yourself, hurt your back, you know, and then it's just, it becomes another reason, and instead of just coming in being a little bit more humble and changing the approach to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's also a factor of like somebody's like looking for the quick fix.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I should see results now.
Yeah.
doesn't work that
Like,
way.
calm down, Brock
You know,
Lesnar.
you got to stick to it. You know, you get a long-term plan.
Yeah.
You know, then you'll start seeing, you know, small increments
Yeah.
of growth.
And then, so I put most people destroy their lives with short-term thinking, and we talked about that. And
Yes.
discipline forces long-term thinking, and it's a boring now, freedom later type of mentality. And what boring habit, or people would consider boring, do you think has changed your life?
What boring habit?
Yeah, or people would consider boring. But one habit, it doesn't have to be a big one. It could be just something.
You know what? I got to say, it's something that I do consistently every day is I have to go out and walk my dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something very simple, very basic, you know, but it's one of the most fulfilling parts of my day, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's just me and the boys.
Yeah.
You know, it's a short amount of time, but the thing is they love it.
Yeah.
You know, makes me feel good about it. You know, we get home, and you know everything's right with the
Yeah.
day. You know.
You feel like that's a marker for your day, like kind of like, okay, boom, I did. But like you kind of, once you reach that point of the day, it's kind of like, cool, another day down, I did this and that, and like, does it?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a checkpoint.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because, you know, I start my days off early. You know, one of the first things I actually accomplish, like in the day, is my workout. You know, and then it's after my workout is that the dogs have come to expect. You know, that as soon as I walk through the door, it's time to go for a walk. You know, and I'm down with that. It's a good routine. It's
Yeah.
a good cool down, actually.
Yeah.
You know, but then that's like the next thing. It's like it's off the checklist. You know,
Yeah.
and it's something good that was done. You know, it's a healthy practice. It's completely gratifying.
Yeah.
You know, and then it affects your demeanor.
Yeah.
When you move into the next thing, that was great. Bring it on. Let's do what's next.
I think for me, like a habit that I've noticed that I do now lately, so like the time that I leave from leaving work to come over here, or when I leave here from the gym to go home, is I always listen to like audiobooks now.
Right.
For some reason, I don't know why. I like listening to music. I mean, I'm always listening to music when I'm working out, but when I'm on the drive, it kind of, I'm like listening to something, and I'm kind of like you kind of, maybe it's decompressing, or I don't know, or that's, I feel like that's when I do my best thinking, when I'm kind of just driving. And I kind of noticed that is my kind of little habit of kind of like not listening so much music, because I was like, I don't want to hear something loud at that point. It's like I'm just trying to like more, like I'm driving, I'm thinking, I'm listening to something a little bit more mellow, and it kind of helps me decompress, and then also kind of have free flow of ideas. I know I do notice that there's something definitely about when I do it that I start thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do this or this and that.
Yeah, you can get a clarity of thought, man. You know.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's always like that. So I think for us, one of the things we try, that kind of shows people that we're practicing what we're preaching, is like when we're doing the podcast, it's all sets and reps for us. You know what I mean?
More or
Like
less.
by doing the episodes and talking, we kind of figure our outline. You know, Miguel, he helps us with the setup. So it's kind of a learning process. So I think the same thing we're telling people to do, we're doing also, just in a different capacity, because we
Absolutely.
worked out so much that we kind of, working out is not like a new challenge for us. So podcasting becomes like a new challenge for us. Like, okay, well, how do we want it to look? Why did we change the setup like this? How does this look better? And we talk about it, before and after the podcast. So I think people will get a chance, when you're hearing us talk about it, is like, we're not just saying it from a place of, we're not doing it ourselves. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're not some millionaires, or we can't be, or we just have, people, we walk into our studio and it's all set up. It
Right.
doesn't work like that. So
Right.
I get it. So it makes us also have to be, thinking critically. That's about how we want to like approach things, and what's working, and this doesn't work, or do we like the flow of this and that, and that, I think that helps us also grow
Yeah.
in what we're doing.
Yeah, it's not being afraid to make changes. You
Yeah.
know, so just to try to make something better. You know, come up with a better routine, make it cleaner, make it smoother.
Yep.
You know, and that's how things develop.
And that's what I put like, as far as like, it's outline, schedules, consistency, doing shit we never done. And I think we see that all the time. I think me and you talk about that. I think a lot of people that are trying to approach, whether it's the gym, a business, the podcast space, there's gonna be a certain level of uncomfortableness,
Yeah.
and you have to get over that. You just have to do it, and then as you're doing it, you make little micro adjustments, and it makes it easier. And then you try to make it part of your routine, and that's where the discipline part of it comes. So that's why even now you're gonna see more clips of us doing the podcast thing, because I know at the beginning of the year when Miguel said the same thing, he's like, hey, I want to you keep it more consistent. And so we're just, and then me and you talked about it. So it just makes us be more consistent, and it's all
Absolutely.
basically just keeping us all, accountable to the same goal.
Yeah.
I think for just the last couple of talking points is, I did that podcast on this weekend with Steve Morris, and we basically talked about a lot of different things: sobriety, trauma, relationships, and how pain shapes habits. And I think that I like that we're getting more into just different. I think we're kind of not just focusing on problems and interviewing people. We're also focusing on giving like, hey, here's some solutions that have worked from us. This is why we think they work from us. And then when we have guys like, you or Steve that are talking about a lot of different things and bringing different perspective, and also being more, I want to say vulnerable, but like, especially Steve got really into like some big sources of the issues that for him. And a lot of guys don't want to do that. When you look at I watch a lot of podcast stuff, and you see some people do it and some people don't, but a lot of people are just giving you like the highlight reels. You know what I mean? When you
Right.
see a lot of these influencers, they're trying to tell you how great their life is and this and that. But then at the same time, you can see them, 6 months or a year down the road, like, oh, so-and-so looks like they're on drugs, or they're crashing out, or they're over there just getting in trouble. And it's like, well, if everything's so great, then why are these why are these, what is it? I want to say, or why are there these symptoms of something that isn't so great?
Right, right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Because I think that's what people have to understand is like, to get to a good place, it's not going to be flashy. Meaning we're not going to be here throwing around money or
No,
saying do drugs and hey, do this. Like none of that stuff is going to happen for you to get to a good place. And anyone that's telling you that that's how it's supposed to be, they're basically lying to you, because I've never seen anyone act like that or conduct themselves in that way. And then they have just like a good foundation or a good life. Louisiana comes crashing down at some point.
And it's good making things, kind of relatable in a way that makes them duplicatable easily, and also just kind of cite how it is that by engaging in certain practices, outcomes can be consistent, and they don't have to be huge leaps.
Yeah.
They can just be small steps at a time.
Micro changes.
Absolutely.
So we can give a shout out to our sponsors, the Good Leader brand, Good and Dangerous, also Easy F Media, Gain Station Gym, all the time for letting us use their location. And then,
It's the home of the Good Leader podcast.
Yes, it is. And then, just part of our thing is also, we like to tell people we're not chasing trends. We're not doing any type of like TikTok, fucking, this is the new fashionable thing to do, or selling you hacks. Basically, what we're doing is just having real conversations, and hopefully you guys take something out of it, and it helps real people do real shit. And that's what actually, helps us kind of stay motivated in what we're doing. So
Absolutely.
I think that'll be the end of it, Miguel. So the Good and Dangerous, Good Leader podcast. Stay dangerous.